He looked like any tired old man passing through a gas station. That's why the first laugh landed so easily. Sharp, cruel, designed to draw blood without ever touching him. He didn't turn, didn't react, just shuffled down the aisle with that slow, uneven limp, and the teenagers followed, phones out, whispering loud enough for him to hear. "Look at him. Dude's shaking. Veteran hat looks fake. Who's he trying to impress?" His fingers trembled as he held his medication bag. Not fear, not weakness, just a body that had been through more than any of them could imagine. At the register, his card slipped from his hand. It hit the floor, and their laughter exploded across the store. Customers looked away. The cashier swallowed hard, and the old veteran, fighting for his dignity, bent down to pick up the card, only for his knee to buckle. He caught himself on a snack shelf. Their laughter doubled. Then a voice cut through everything, calm, even, unmistakably firm. "Sir, stay right there." The security guard stepped forward, not rushing, not angry, just staring at the veteran's wrist, at the faded ink, the insignia only a few men on the planet could claim. Recognition hit him like a shock wave, and suddenly the entire store fell silent, waiting for something none of them were prepared for. And before we tell you what happened next, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from. The guard didn't move fast. He didn't posture, didn't raise his voice. He simply stepped closer, one careful, measured stride at a time, eyes fixed on the old man's exposed wrist like it was a piece of history he never expected to see with his own eyes. The teenagers exchanged confused glances. Their laughter thinned into an awkward silence, unsure why the guard's presence felt suddenly, heavier. The guard crouched beside the veteran, lowering himself slowly, respectfully. The old man tried to pull his arm back, embarrassed, instinctively hiding the tattoo the way some men hide scars, but the guard reached out, not to restrain him, to steady him. "Sir," he said quietly, "is that the 43rd Rescue Group?" The teens frowned. "What even is that?" But the guard didn't look at them. His eyes never left the tattoo, a faded emblem, edges blurred by time, ink worn by sand, sweat, cold, and years of survival. A mark earned, not chosen. The veteran didn't answer. He didn't need to. The guard's breath hitched, barely audible. "My brother," he whispered, "made it home because of men who wore that mark." The laughter died completely. The boys stiffened, phones lowering without them realizing. A bottled water slipped from one kid's hand and rolled under a shelf. No one moved to get it. The guard swallowed hard as the memories surfaced. "He used to tell this story," he said, voice trembling just enough to crack the silence. "The helicopter crash, the fire, the river flood, the team pinned on both sides." He looked up at the old man. "You were there, weren't you?" For the first time since he entered the store, the veteran lifted his gaze. Those tired eyes, eyes that had seen far too much, locked onto the guards. A quiet understanding passed between them. No words, just a history neither could forget. One of the teenagers stammered, "Wait, what are you saying? He's like a real soldier? Like, actually?" The guard stood, his voice firm but calm. "Show some respect." He scanned their faces one by one. "If you knew even a fraction of what this man has carried, you wouldn't be pointing cameras at him. You'd be thanking him." The boys dropped their phones to their sides. One of them blinked hard, suddenly unable to look the veteran in the eye. But the guard wasn't finished. He turned back to the old man and extended a hand. "Sir, let me help you up." The veteran hesitated, not from pride, from disbelief. It had been a long time since anyone stepped forward for him. He placed one trembling hand in the guard's. The guard braced himself, lifting slowly, supporting the limp without drawing attention to it. The veteran winced softly as his knee straightened, but he said nothing. Silence was something he had learned long ago. The entire store watched. Customers who had looked away earlier now stared openly, guilt flickering through their faces. The cashier stood frozen behind the counter, jaw slack, receipt tape dangling off the printer. The old man steadied himself, breath slow, shoulders tense, but he stood upright again. That alone felt like a victory. The guard noticed a small pin inside the veteran's jacket pocket, almost hidden, bent, scratched, its gold dulled with age, a commendation few men received and fewer survived to tell about. The guard met his eyes again. "Sir," he said softly, "you saved lives." The veteran shook his head. "Not enough." His voice barely above a whisper. "No one ever saves enough." A silence settled over the room, but it wasn't awkward. It wasn't cold. It was reverent. A kind of silence that demanded the world pause and listen. Then, the automatic doors slid open behind them with a soft hiss. A man in work boots stepped inside, paused and looked around as if sensing the tension instantly. The veteran tensed, instinctively shifting his weight toward the shelf, a habit born in places where doors opening meant danger. The guard noticed. He placed a steadying hand on the veteran's shoulder. "It's okay," he murmured. "You're safe." But the veteran's eyes didn't move from the doorway. Old habits do not die. They wait. They stay sharp in the bones. One of the teens whispered, "Dude, what did he do out there?" Another whispered back, I don't think we'll ever know." If only they knew how right they were. The man who walked in froze when he saw the scene. An old veteran struggling to stand, a guard supporting him, teenagers silent and pale, customers still, unsure of what they were witnessing. The newcomer stepped aside quickly, not wanting to intrude but unable to look away. The guard gently eased the veteran toward a nearby bench against the wall. "Here," he said softly, "let's sit you down." The veteran nodded, still breathing through the last echo of pain in his knee. He moved slowly, lowering himself onto the bench with a soft groan he tried, unsuccessfully, to hide. One of the teens flinched. The sound was small, but it hit like guilt finally finding a door to enter through. The guard crouched beside him again. He wasn't acting like a store employee anymore. He was acting like a man paying a debt he'd carried for years. "Sir," he said, lowering his voice, "my brother used to talk about the rescue team that pulled him out after the crash. The men who held the line behind the burning trucks, the ones who went back, even when the evacuation order was already given." The veteran closed his eyes, not to remember, but because he'd never forgotten. The teens looked at each other. This wasn't a story they were ready for. This wasn't content. This was truth, heavier than they'd ever held. "Is it true?" one of them whispered. You went back for people?" The veteran didn't answer immediately. He rubbed his wrist with the faded tattoo, a gesture so small, yet full of ghosts. I wasn't the only one," he finally said. "A lot of good men didn't come home." The store fell quiet again. The teens lowered their heads, shame flooding in. One stepped forward hesitantly. "Sir, we're sorry." His voice cracked. "We didn't know." The veteran looked up. For a brief moment, the sternness in his eyes returned, not anger, but truth sharpened by experience. "You never know," he said softly. "That's why you don't mock strangers." The boys swallowed hard. One wiped his eyes quickly, pretending he wasn't crying. The guard stood, placing himself between the boys and the veteran, not to protect the veteran from them anymore, but to shield the boys from their own guilt. "Listen," the guard said to them quietly. "You messed up, but now you know better, and that means you don't repeat it." They nodded, unable to speak. A customer approached slowly, an older woman with a grocery basket. She placed a hand over her heart. "I didn't know either," she whispered. "Thank you for what you did, for what you still carry." The veteran looked away, uncomfortable with attention. His hands tightened around the medication bag. "I didn't save the world," he said, "just tried to save the man next to me." "That's what heroes actually look like," the guard replied. The veteran shook his head. "Heroes are the ones who never came back." A silence settled again, so soft, so heavy, it felt like a flag being lowered. The guard helped him back to his feet. "Let me walk you to your car." The teens stepped aside quickly to make room. No jokes, no phones, just quiet respect. As they walked, one of the boys whispered to his friend, "We didn't laugh at a weak man. We laughed at someone stronger than we'll ever be." Outside, the late afternoon sunlight washed over the parking lot. Cars passed, people pumped gas, the world continued like nothing had happened. But inside that small circle, everything had changed. The guard opened the veteran's car door. The veteran paused, hand on the frame, turning to him. "You said your brother made it home," the veteran said. The guard nodded. "He did," he replied, "because someone held the line long enough for the medics to reach him." The veteran lowered his eyes, voice soft, barely above a breath. "I remember that day." The guard's eyes widened. "You were there?" The veteran gave the smallest nod. "I carried him to the riverbank when the second explosion hit." The guard's voice broke. "I've been waiting years to thank you." The veteran looked away. "You don't owe me anything." The guard shook his head. "That's where you're wrong." He extended his hand. This time, the veteran didn't hesitate. He took it. A firm, steady grip. Two men bound by a moment neither expected, in a place neither thought would matter. The guard stepped back as the veteran started the engine. "Take care of yourself, sir." The old man gave a tired but honest smile. "You too, son." The car rolled out of the lot slowly and disappeared into traffic. The boys watched it go until it was nothing but a memory. And in that silence, a new understanding settled into their bones, a weight they'd carry long after the video they never posted. Because you don't forget the day you mocked a man, only to learn he had once carried others through the fire. And you don't forget the day the world reminded you have no idea what battles strangers have fought. So before you go, take 1 second, tap subscribe, and join us here at Mindfront, where the quiet heroes finally have a voice and their stories are never forgotten. And let us know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Because no matter where you are, some stories deserve to travel farther than the people who lived them ever could.